Alright, I'm going to create a simple application that deals with a student number and their 4 marks. Okay, so we're going to have this in a grid, in a list box, and then we will then do the update and the update, add and delete. Okay, or add, edit and delete. Okay.
So the same one, sir.
Hey?
The same one.
No, it's not the same one. It's just a different. I'm just going to quickly show you. Almost same, but not same. Okay, so alright, I'm going to call this student or sub marks win app. Student marks win application. Okay. We need this. Okay, so this form will have okay, so what we want to do, we want to add a list view to this form. A list view.
So why don't you document
Okay.
the view?
The list view.
Yeah. Too much information.
Now, if I dock it, then it's going to take up the whole screen.
Depends on where the screen is.
Okay. So we want to edit the properties of the list view. So we'll include we'll change the view. So for a list view, there's two properties that you basically, if you don't change it there, you can change it in the properties. You change the view, right? To make sure that that's detailed view, right? And then also you add the columns. Okay? So you would click on columns to add the various columns. Okay, so your columns would be whatever goes in there, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. So my first column will be just the student number. And that will be student number. Second one will be call it mark 1. Mark 1. Mark 2. Mark 2. Mark 3. Right, the name here, right? The name there is will not really be used, okay, in your programming code, okay. So if you leave it like that, but your text there is the text is basically the column headers, right? So that you have to change so that it be more meaningful, okay. Right, I'm just keeping the name. So the name you can't keep it as a space, but your column text you can do that, right? Alright, so let's just put up third or last column there and name that the average. Okay, just to call it average mark. Okay, so that will be the average mark that will be calculated mark. Okay? Right. So once you've got all your 4, 5 columns in there, we then select this add, OK, and then make sure that you space your columns just like that. Okay. Right. Okay, so now you add your buttons because you want to do the update, add, and delete button. Okay, so what I do, I use Control and mouse down to copy it. Okay. Alright, you need a fourth button there, just as a close button. So the text on that button would be add edit delete, and that one would be exit. Okay. Right, if you need to name that, you name the first button as btn add, btn add, btn edit. So you keep the names as simple as possible. Okay. btn delete, btn exit. Yes? No, you don't really have to, because you're not really going to use the columns here, okay? Because it will be accessed by sub-items, and you will index the sub-items, okay? Alright. Okay, so all the buttons properties have been changed. So on the buttons you change two properties, the name property and the text property, okay? That is what you want to change there. The name property and the text property for the button. Okay. Right, I'll just set the grid lines. Okay, grid lines. Set grid lines to true. It shows the grid lines. Okay. Excuse me? Oh, that doesn't really matter. You just do that, okay? It's not really extra column, it's just a space after the last column. Okay? Right, so once you're done with all of that, you then add your second form, okay? So under Solution Explorer, you right click on the header file folder and add a new item. Okay? So header file, right click, add new item, and we will add a new form. And I'll just call this form update form. Update form, right? Okay, call that update form. Right. What box? This box. Well, I'm going to make it big because I need to put up some text boxes and whatever. Okay. Alright, so on your first form, what you can do now is if you right click on the form and go to the view code, you can now add the second form. Include the update form. Okay. Right, because you're going to need it to call the update form. Okay? So you put the include there, right? Before you do the second design. Okay? Okay. Okay. So on the add button, you can now add the code. Okay. Update form. This new word, this word here, new form, that is user defined. Okay, so you give your own name. Okay? Right, so GC new basically creates a new instance of that, and it sets, it basically assigns the location to this variable over here. Right? In other words, in memory, a new allocation, new object has been created, and it assigns the sort of the handle, what they call a handle. Right? This is a okay. So that has been. So basically what it says, it creates a new instance of the form, okay, second form. So your second form has got a method called show dialog, which will basically bring up the second form. Okay. Right, so at this point you can test your program, see whether it actually brings up the second form. Test that. Alright, so that's on the OK button, on the add button. Okay. Remember, we're going to add more code to this, okay? Alright, so on the add button, it brings up the form, okay? Alright? Got an error? Make sure that that line of code is your form the same, is your form name the same? No, I put it in the name. Okay, it's working? Alright, let's continue. Let's continue, okay? Okay, so what we want to do on when the second form is called, okay? After it returned, it must redisplay the record that was added, and it must add it to the list view, okay? But you need to return that values from the second form, okay? And in order to do that, you have to create in the second form. Now, let's just first populate our second form with the student number, the Mark 1, Mark 2, mark 1, mark 2, mark 3, and that will calculate the average mark. Okay. Maybe you don't have to calculate the average mark or put the average mark there. You just calculate it and send it back to the second form or the first form. Okay. So we need that. So you name your label. Student number. Mark 1. Mark 2. Mark 3. Okay. Alright, your properties on your text box. TXT student number, SN, student number. TXT M1, TXT M2, and TXT M3. Okay. Alright, then you need two buttons. A save button and a cancel button. Save button. Cancel. Oops, we will. Okay. Okay, you all done? So, okay, let me just change the property names. BTN cancel and BTN save. Okay, so you will need intermediate variables for the student number, for the Mark 1, Mark 2, and Mark 3. Those variables you can declare as strings in your required designer variables. Okay, together with your average mark. Okay, right. So okay, view code. So what I do, I right click and go to view code, and then right at the end there or somewhere there where it says required designer variable, this is now on the update form. Okay, I'm gonna add for my student number. Okay, let's keep it lowercase s, comma M1, comma M2, comma M3, and then also the average, maybe G. Okay? Yeah. I'm declaring this variable. This is my string variables. These I will use to get, in other words, to hold the values that were passed. Okay, but I will also use this to send the values, right? Okay. Right, so that is the declaration there. Okay, so it's string. So we've populated the controls, we've added the controls, given them the names, meaningful names, and then we've declared variables there, which will basically hold that string to pass it through the second form, the first form. Alright. So now, after you've added that code there, you go back to your design and you double click on the save button, because now what happens, the save button will now assign those values to your strings that you've just declared. Okay, so the student number will be equal to txt sn, text of that, the mark 1. No, I'm using that only in the text box. Txt m1 txt m2, text of that, m3, txt m3. Okay. Now, if you want to do calculations, okay, on any of the values that you get from the text box, you have to first convert it to either integer or double. Okay, then you can only do calculation, because you cannot calculate string values, right? So if you want to do the average, we first have to convert the marks, each mark, to an appropriate type. Okay, right, and that you can do by saying double okay, I can't give it the same name, so I must give it int mark 1 is equal to double colon parse okay. So that you do the same for mark 2, mark 3, mark 3. Okay. And then your average, it's actually double, no? Not integer. Okay. That word int there basically means it's an integer. I just use the word to distinguish between marks that you've got. Okay. I can use it as a capital M, but because it's local. Okay. You can change to dbl, dbl. Okay. No. I want to get the average as a calculated field, and then assign it to a string variable. So dbl m1 plus dbl. Are you all still with me? Do you know what we're doing? Right? No. What, you don't know what I'm doing? Okay. What I'm doing, I'm getting the text values and assigning to the string variables that we've declared over here. Okay. Alright, this is our string values, okay? These will be used to pass it to the second form, or the first form, right? Or vice versa. Alright. So what we're doing on the save is we put it in that format as strings, right? The student number, the Mark 1, Mark 2, and Mark 3. But before that, we also want to put the average into the string value, right? But before we can do that, we have to first calculate the average, right? But you can only calculate the average if it's in the appropriate type. So that's why we've declared 3 doubles, okay? And we've converted the string values to a double, okay? So now we're declaring another double, and we do the calculation for the average. Okay? So average is equal to DBL Mark 3. Right, so all of that together divided by 3, that will give you an average. Okay? Divided by 3. Okay? Alright? And now, right? Oh, did I say 2? So now you can say the average, which is your string variable, is equal to dbl average dot toString. Okay? Alright? And I'm going to use that formatting there to get okay, double. That dbl average is a double. Okay? This is a string. Alright, so I'm converting that to a string. And I'm putting that if there, so to force it to show the decimal places. Okay? Yeah, 2 decimal places.
So won't you cut off some other decimal if it was a lot of numbers for instance?
It will cut off all the others now. So we only want 2 decimal, we're only interested in 2 decimal places. Okay? Alright, so now we've got that. So on the save, you also want to close the form, right? What way is that? That's it. Now that is what we call a member access operator arrow. In other words, this is a text box, right? And the text box consists of members, right? Right, thank you. So the text member, or the text property, basically, we want to get the text properties, the value that is in the text property. Okay?
But you just need to do that.
Okay, text. Yeah, in other words, to retrieve whatever is in the text box. Right. Now, okay, successful. Alright, so the code works. Okay. Alright, now on the first form we call this form, okay, but after this is returned back, it's not gonna retain those values because those values are local to the second form. Okay, so what you want in this form is you want another method that will actually allow you to return that form, okay, that values, right? So in our where it says this is what we call, this is a default constructor. Okay, that is what for constructor. Okay. Right. So over here we can add another method. Okay. You don't really have to put the word public, but just to show that that's the start of a new. So public, and we make it a void function, and we call it, what are we going to call it? Get values. Okay. So we need to declare a SN M1 M2 M3, because it will be passed, it will basically be passed as strings. Okay. And then AVG. Right, so it's a string SN, M1, M2, M3, and then back here we've got AVG, okay, for the average. Open bracket, close curly. Okay. So what will happen here? Okay. What do you think? What will happen here? Okay. Remember, we've got declarations. We've got local we've got these declarations, and we've got those parameters. Okay. Okay. In actual fact, I must say. I just put in that ampersand in the middle there. Right, that is because we want to pass it by a reference. Okay. Okay. We want to pass it by reference. Okay. So it will be Sn is equal to Sn. M1 is equal to M1, M2 is equal to M2, M3 is equal to M3, and then AVG is equal to AVG. Right. So the values that we've got from the text box and that we calculated, we now assign it to this values, which will be returned back to the first form. Okay. Okay. Right, so after we've done this, we go back to our first form, and then we call that new now. What did we call it? Get values. No? get right. Okay, so at this point we don't have any string variables to receive that values, right? So what you need to do, you have to actually declare inside here. You also have to declare. You can use the same variables like you did here, because it doesn't matter really, because it's two different areas, right? So it's local. This is local to that, and whatever you declare will be local to that as well. Okay. So you can put some spaces there. String m1 equals string m2 is equal to m3. Now over here you use that parameters. Okay. Okay, so we've added that piece of code and we've added that line over there, right? Okay, and that was after we've included that code there, right? Okay, right, so at this stage let's compile this program and see if there's any errors. Okay, so there's no errors and it comes up with, so if we click on there, okay, nothing will really happen because okay. Hey? Yeah, it's not saved into the list yet. Okay. Right, so there is an error here. Okay, that's fine because there's no values, right? That was saved. Okay. So at this point here, we now want to add it to the list view. Okay. So first of all, you need to create a list view item. Okay. I normally call it M or L1 is equal to list view item, and you set the initial value, that's your SN. Then after that you would say what is it? Sub items add 1. Into and 3 AVG. Alright, so that code will then add it to the record to the list view. Okay. Okay. List view starts with a capital E. List view, this one, lowercase l, because that's the default name that you in the design. That could be the default name. Okay. Okay, I'll check now. Alright, so let's build that and see. Okay, so we press the add button, we type in our student numbers, type in the mark, 56, 67, and the 6 again. We save that, it goes back, and then it adds with the average mark. Okay, so that is added. Right? Add another record. Marks. Save. Adds a second record. Okay?
So there's no way that you control those marks. There's no way to use that.